Hi, I'm Renée Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Welcome to the Spiritually Wired podcast. Okay, so something that I hear often, and I know that I've also experienced, is that it often feels like we have 100 open tabs in our mind, just like you do on your computer, where you're opening up your computer. And right now I'm in definitely need of a cleanup on my computer. So it's like I'm opening it up and there's all these open tabs. And that is often what it can feel like in our minds, where there's so many different projects that we're working on at the same time. There's all the different roles and responsibilities that you are, playing in life, the different aspects of your life. And it can feel like a lot of overwhelm. And at the same time, assuming that you're listening to the Spiritually Wired podcast means that you're someone who's considers themselves to be spiritual, or at least curious about what it means to be spiritual. So you're someone who's likely tried, maybe you do it actively, consistently. Maybe it's something that you're wanting to integrate, but you're open to practices like meditation and journaling and affirmations and all of the things that you are doing as a practice to help you cultivate more presence and more peace of mind, really more clarity. But maybe you are feeling that something is missing in all of that. And I know that, here's the thing, for me personally, that is exactly where I was at, where I was like doing all the things, but there was still something that I felt was missing. And this was like when I was on the personal development path, and I had been, coaching for years. I'm doing the things, but there was still something that I felt was missing. And, there's this really beautiful quote by Einstein where it says, "You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it." And I remember reading that quote and being like, this is it. If the chatter and the confusion and the stress and all of the stuff is coming from the mind, then I know that I can't solve this from the mind. That there has to be something beyond the mind that is actually going to be the answer to this. And that's when the spiritual path really started, because it became about transcending beyond the mind and just allowing for the mind to be what it is. It's a part of the human body. And so it's meant to be a part of our human experience here, but it's not who we are. That is you are not your thoughts. You are the space in between your thoughts. That was another huge, big moment of realization when that really sunk in. That was just the jumping board, I guess, to really recognizing that, I'm not my thoughts. So all of this clutter, all of this confusion in my mind, the overwhelm, all of that, that's not who I am. Those are my thoughts that I'm having. All of the beliefs, the negative beliefs, all of that stuff, that's not who I am. I am the space in between that, in between those thoughts. It's often referred to as the gap when we meditate, when you're in that space of stillness. So we find ourselves in the space in between our thoughts. And that space there is actually the essence of what consciousness, source, spirit, God, the universe, doesn't matter what word you use, but that is the frequency of that consciousness. And so that means that we hold that consciousness, we hold that frequency within us. And that's really who we are at our core. So the thoughts are there. They're allowing us to have this human experience. They're allowing for the soul to have the human experience, just as your body is, your heart, all of that, right? It's the vehicle for your soul to experience this life. But that's not who you are. You're that space in between. And so that was so big to have that realization. So now the question becomes then, how do I connect more with that essence, with that consciousness? And I'm going to call that connection spiritual connection, because that's what it is. When we talk about deepening your spiritual connection, it's connecting to this energy that is beyond, that you cannot quite explain. You can't feel it, you can't touch it, you can't see it. It is an experience, a knowing that you have that you can't quite express in words. And that's what makes it so hard. I mean, it certainly makes my job hard, the work I do, because it's so much easier to be sharing about something physical, tangible. I'm holding a pencil in my hand right now. I can describe it. I can feel it, touch it. There's so much I can give you about this pencil. While as when we're speaking of our spiritual connection, it's not a tangible thing. And so it really becomes a belief that we have. And it requires faith, which is believing in something that you can't quite see, touch, feel, hear, see. At the same time, knowing that the more I connect, the deeper, the stronger my spiritual connection is, the more everything else that doesn't really matter, that's not who I really am, it just falls into place in a way that makes sense again. So it's not that clearly my physical body is important, my mind, my heart, all of that, but it's a vehicle. And so now I actually want to take care of it in a whole different way. I want to love it, cherish it in a completely different way when I see it like that. The mind, the what causes so much stress and confusion and overwhelm and all of that stuff, it now is different, because if I'm recognizing that it's not really who I am, then I don't have to give it all of the energy that maybe I was giving to it in the past. So that shifts that as well. So it gives you a new perspective. You know, in coaching, we call it like you're zooming out. And when you zoom out, you're able to see things in a whole different way. And so that's what I really wanted to talk about today. Like, how, if we are saying, okay, that your spiritual connection is the key to moving beyond the mind and to actually cultivating this inner peace, this calm, the gap, right? Strengthening that space so that you really are able to be even more of who you are, to remember. How do you do that? So let's explore that. I'd say that there's three major components to it. First one is belief. And belief is like you are opening the door. In order to connect, you need to believe that there is a greater energy at play, greater consciousness. It doesn't mean that you're like, hey, whatever it is. It's not like blind faith, but it's more a willingness to be open, a willingness to believe. It's like you're opening that door to believe. and believing that this universal energy actually exists. And that is the first piece to it. Now, whenever I'm kind of on the fence, whenever I'm like, okay, well, this is still doesn't feel tangible to me. How do I believe? What does that look like? I always say, if it's hard to believe one thing, then explore the opposite of that. And so if I explore the opposite, if I don't want to believe that there is a universal intelligence or energy or source or God or spirit that exists, then what does it mean? It means that I believe that everything is random, that, we're here on this earth, and when you transition, you don't transition. When your life is finished, it's finished and it's done, and that's that. And some people believe that, and that is everyone, we have free will. We get to choose what we believe in. So for me, when I explore the opposite, and I would invite you, explore the opposite, what does that feel like? I can't be in that space. There's just a knowing that I can't quite explain, but I do feel like in my depth, the depth of my being, my bones, in my cells, that there is something that exists, that it's greater. And I believe in it because when I look outside and I'm in nature and I see the beauty that exists, when you see a baby that is born and the miracle of birth, I see it in the small moments of, the tender moments with people, the love that you see in people's eyes. So that for me makes it where I can't believe that there isn't something that is bigger that exists. It just doesn't make sense. I can't compute that. So that makes the belief in a universal consciousness, in an energy that's greater, just, of course it does. So that can be helpful. So it's something to explore. So the belief is essential, right? Because it opens the channel. If you don't believe, that's okay. That's your choice. But obviously, you're not going to be wanting to explore a deeper connection if the belief isn't there to believe to begin with. The second piece of this is remembering. The remembering is how we strengthen the connection. So that's the second step, because here is what I know shifted. Another piece that really shifted is, and I remember, it was another quote of like, meditation is about remembering. And I use the term meditation, but meditation, spiritual connection, it's about remembering who you are, remembering that you are the space in between your thoughts. And the remembering piece, what that allows us is that there's nothing that we have to learn. There is nothing that is outside of yourself. Deepening, strengthening your spiritual connection. Yes, there are certain practices that can help you remember, that can help you to cultivate presence, to cultivate the space in between your thoughts, to invite presence, to be in awe, to notice, witness the miracles that are around you, the magic, the beauty that is always present around you. And it's not a single practice. There's nothing that is needed other than to just simply remember who you are, what the essence is. Of course, remembering is the piece that, again, those practices can help you, because otherwise it's so easy to forget. That is the thing. It's like, in life, most of the things we need to do, we know, but we just forget. And that's okay. That's part of being human too. So it's not about judging when we forget, but it's remembering who we are. And the best ways to remember is through, again, meditation, prayer, journaling, time in nature, working out. For some people, like, that is where they remember. That is where they connect. That is where they come back, because it is a practice of coming back. The this universal energy, consciousness, universe, whatever we want to call it, it's always communicating with us. But because life is so busy and life is loud and there's so much that is going on, it's easy to not hear it, to forget. So the remembering piece is so important. So we want to create an environment that supports us remembering, whatever that looks like for you. So for me, it looks like my daily rituals and my meditation. And certainly the work that I do has been, pivotal for me because I'm immersed in this world. And so when I'm coaching, when I'm teaching, when I'm holding space in groups or whatever it may be, I'm always tapping in, always remembering. So that's been helpful for me. But when your work is something that is different, then it's how do I remember? And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be you're waking up and when you have your morning coffee or tea, and maybe it's even just lighting a candle, taking a deep breath, and just being quiet for a moment to stay connected with the who am I. And then the third piece to it is a detachment. Detachment is probably the often can feel like the hardest piece of spiritual connection, and yet it is the single most important one, because detachment, so if we think of like belief is what opens the door to your spiritual connection, and then the remembering is what keeps the signal strong, right? So it's your practices that you're doing. And then the detachment is what lets all of the magic in. And detachment means that there's a surrendering piece. It means that you're letting go of trying to control life. Understanding that life is always going to be flowing, and sometimes things are going well and you're experiencing all of the good feelings, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes things feel a little bit harder. Now you're experiencing the emotions that are on the other side of the scale that feel a little bit more uncomfortable, let's just put it that way. And sometimes it's downright hard. Yet there is a quality of surrendering, of trusting that somehow we are still being held, still being loved, even in those moments where it may not reflect it. So it's easier to believe and to have a stronger connection and to surrender when things are going your way. It's when things are not going our way, as we know, that it becomes more challenging. And so it's a learning to stay in surrender, stay in detachment, and trust, even in those moments, especially in those moments when life gets harder. But if you're really coming at it from we're all working together, and the part of our suffering is that comes from attachment. So attachment to certain outcomes. So there's the belief, there is the remembering, the practicing, the bringing yourself into the space of being more and more, cultivating more that space. And then there is the detachment, the surrendering, the trust, the knowing. The best word is that we're co-creating with this beautiful energy. And so that is part of how we deepen our spiritual connection. And so I hope that this episode helps you to really be in the space of, I always say, curiosity, to be in the space of what if, to choose, to intentionally, because, whenever it is that we're deepening, whatever practice that we want to do, faith, belief, the surrendering piece, the detachment, the remembering, it's like a muscle. We have to work, we have to continuously choose it. And that is the piece, is that it's never a moment, a one-time thing of like, okay, I'm spiritually connected now and I don't have to think about it anymore. No, we're always in a relationship with it, right? So we're constantly choosing our belief. We're constantly choosing to remember, to cultivate that space, constantly choosing to surrender, to trust. And so it's always fluid, always in movement. I am sending you so much love wherever you're at in your life, whether deepening your spiritual connection is feeling easy right now, whether it's maybe feeling especially hard. Just want you to know that I am sending you so much love wherever you're at, and reminding you that you are spiritually wired. Now you know where that name comes from. You are always spiritually wired for love, for belief, for trust, for surrender, for remembering, always spiritually wired for abundance, for success. And I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly live lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at reneewalkerwellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.